Good evening, everybody. It is once again Ted the Speed Learner, and this video response is going to go out to Crazy Josh Cravey because you uploaded a video called Apple Rant. Now, I did this video once before, and unfortunately I ran into a website that was very full of errors, and DLukens9 made me aware of these errors, so I have done a little more research and I have found more reliable and more accurate information, and I will go ahead and present it here tonight. Now, I'm pretty sure that most people will figure out right off the bat that I am older than Crazy Josh Cravey, but I know that there's going to be a few people out there going, hey, I got to get my calculator, figure out just who's the oldest. Okay, you don't need a calculator for this. Duh. I'm serious. I have people that do these kind of things. I'm sorry, but they do. Anyway, so because we grew up in very different time periods, of course, we had very different experiences with computers. Now, my experience came from the late 1980s. That's when I went to high school. And when I was attending the Technical Academy at that time, I was dealing with an NCR mainframe. Now, do not get this confused with the UNIVAC and the ENIAC, okay? They were created in the 1960s, and they used paper tape, and they used magnetic tape, and they used paper cards. We didn't use that kind of stuff. Our mainframe was only half as large as the UNIVAC and the ENIAC, and it was all integrated circuits, but it was also hooked up to dumb terminals. Okay? And these dumb terminals, they didn't really have a CPU, they didn't have a hard drive. Basically what they were was very sophisticated typewriters. You typed your stuff into the dumb terminal, it got sent to the NCR mainframe processed all that information, and then sent it back either to a printer or back to the dumb terminal. That's how that worked. And this is kind of like what we have today when you have the server-client relationship. Although I will say the client computers are 100 times more sophisticated than what we had in the dumb terminals. I mean, most people own a client computer, so you can pretty much tell that client computers are far more sophisticated than dumb terminals. But they operate off basically the same premise. Okay? There's similarities. Let me put it that way. There are similarities between a client computer and a dumb terminal, but there are also many differences. Okay, now, having said all of that, when I went to the Technical Academy, I learned how to program in the beginner's all-purpose symbolic instruction code and in the common business-oriented language, BASIC and COBOL. Now, people like us, I've built my own computer. I've actually built 4 computers. I've installed my own operating system. I'm very familiar with Linus Tovalords and the Linux operating system, in case you had never heard of that either. But people like us, we like to build our own computers and install our own software and create our own software. And so this leads into the problem. Now, what about Steve Jobs and Bill Gates? Well, Steve Jobs in 1973 dropped out of Reed College and formed the Apple Computer Company. He was the co-founder. All right. Bill Gates dropped out of college. He dropped out of Harvard in 1975 and formed Microsoft. Okay. Now, there were 2 little battles that happened between Steve Jobs and Bill Gates that caused quite a little rift. Now, they were friends to a certain extent, but they also were rivals. The first part was because Steve Jobs developed the graphical user interface, and Bill Gates had made a promise to him that he would not release it until Apple released their first home computer. Well, this didn't work out too well because there was a delay in the release of the first Apple home computer. And because of that delay, Bill Gates released his graphical user interface in his Microsoft software. And of course, Bill Gates had developed the Microsoft software for the International Business Machines Corporation for their PCs. And that caused a rift. But there was another rift. Bill Gates honestly believed in people like me, who wanted to build our own computers, who wanted to create our own software. So he did not make his operating system proprietary. We could all work on it. It was the same type of deal with Linus Torvalds. We got to work on our own software. But Steve Jobs didn't believe things that way. He honestly believed that if something broke on your computer, you had to take it to an Apple store to get it fixed. Now this also leads me to D. Lukens 9. And here's my response to you on that. You say, well, Best Buy will fix Apple computers. Well, I'm going to quote Yankee Gray 99 from a website, and this is exactly what he said. Geek Squad will try to fix your Apple, but I wouldn't go to them. Your best bet is to send it to an Apple dealer, even though it'd be more expensive. It'd be expensive even if the Geek Squad did fix it, because Mac parts are expensive to start with because of their proprietary hardware. Your best option is to just get a PC. That's what he said. And I'm not Yankee Gray 99. I don't know who this guy is, but that's what he said. And I tend to agree with him. You can't just take your Apple product to just any ordinary human being and let them fix it. It doesn't work that way. I know this because I have a friend of mine, and she owned a MacBook. The keyboard broke on it, and she had to drive 30 miles in the middle of the night to go to an Apple store to get it fixed. She wasn't too happy about it. And that's the very reason why I will not use Apple products. Because when something breaks on my computer, I want to be able to fix it all by myself because I have been trained how to do this. Now, I will admit that when it comes to developing pictures and creating videos, that Apple does beat Microsoft. However, when it comes to data processing, when it comes to working with databases, when it comes to information technology in the lines of raw data in a database, it's better to have a PC than it is a Mac. And I will stand on that, because I have worked in those environments. And I actually have worked with an Apple before, because we used to have Apple computers in my technical academy. We didn't have a whole lot of them, but we did have a couple of them. We got to play with them a little bit. And yes, I too thought the graphical user interface stuff was great. But when you're dealing with raw data and you're trying to create a COBOL program, you want a PC, not a Mac. And I will stand on that. So that's why I don't use Apple products. That's why I don't like Apple products, because I deal with a lot of raw data and I don't deal with video and photography that much. I mean, I do make these videos, but not like that. So hopefully that gives you an idea of why data processors like myself don't like to use Apple products. And it's just, well, if I keep saying things, I'm just going to babble on, and I have such a horrible time with babbling. I really do. So I'm just going to cut this short and sweet. I understand how much you love apples, and I can understand why, because you're into multimedia, and that's fine. But, like I said, when you're dealing with raw data like I'm dealing with, not the same. Alright, I will tell you more in a future video. Stay tuned.